Area Toastmasters. Guest IP is International Paper, and it's in New York, in Ticonderoga. And the pipeline we're talking about is an extension that is proposed of a gas pipeline that comes down from Canada, and presently it terminates in Colchester. I'll put the map up. I hope you can see it. I know somebody that won't be able to see it, but maybe our description will be adequate. And I'll try not to obscure Bill's paucity or Peter's gremlin. But Colchester is at the top of the map near Burlington, and the pipeline proposed will come down through Heinsberg and Moncton and New Haven to Middlebury, and there'll be a facility for distribution of gas to the local businesses and people in Middlebury, and that's known as Phase 1. Phase 2, and that's the one that is going to be before the Public Service Board for approval right now. Phase 2 is being planned, and that's from Middlebury. It will go through Cornwall and Shoreham to the lake shore, and they'll poke a hole underneath, through the rock underneath the lake to come out at Ticonderoga to provide gas for the facility of International Paper. International Paper presently uses oil for its energy, which is rather expensive, and the thinking is that they could reduce their expenses enormously by using gas. So that's one of the big pluses for this pipeline. Eventually there'll be a Phase 3 which will bring gas down to Rutland and have lots of businesses in Rutland that can make use of the gas and presumably benefit from the cost advantage. The cost advantage we know of is as it stands today, but there's no guarantee that it will continue to be a cost advantage in the future. One big issue about the pipeline is that the gas that will be distributed will be so-called fracking gas. And are you familiar with the term? It's a contraction of the term hydraulic fracturing. And I'll put up this cartoon, even though I'm not sure anybody will be able to see it. But it kind of describes what hydraulic fracturing is, or fracking. It's different from normal extraction of methane gas from the ground. This involves digging a very deep well, could go down several thousand feet, into a rock formation which is known as what kind of shale? I didn't write it down. It's a shale formation which millions of years ago came about because at one time the area was at the bottom of an ocean, and it's a sediment that has dropped from the upper layers of the ocean where the life forms exist in oxygenated water, and down lower in the ocean it's anoxic. There are no oxygen, so there's no life, and the waste and the dead bodies of the creatures will fall to the bottom and along with other sedimentation, and it becomes a rock formation, or a sedimentary rock formation, which has a high carbon content because of the residue from all the life in the ocean. Now, with plate tectonics, it's no longer an ocean. In fact, there are mountains or lots of soil or other rock formations above it. But this layer down here is where they're finding this gas. But the trouble is, they have to put in some very nasty chemicals in order to break up the rock, to release the gas, to bring that to the surface. They drive the drilling horizontally in this shale formation, and go for miles in all directions, and send down this horrible stuff at very high pressure, and that fractures the rock, releasing gas, which is then brought up to the surface and enters the distribution system for fractured gas. And that's the kind of gas that will be made available by building this pipeline from Colchester eventually to Rutland. There is a lot of controversy about it. The reason being it is very unsatisfactory environmentally. There is a lot of fracturing of the rock and extraction of gas in the eastern part of the United States, in Pennsylvania, in New York State, in the Finger Lakes area, in Kentucky, in West Virginia, and Virginia, where this shale formation is abundant. And it turns out that a lot of people are finding their wells poisoned, and they're actually able to turn on the faucet and light a match and have a fire come out of the faucet because of all of the gas that's accumulated in it. And there's nothing they can do about it. They've already apparently assigned an easement over to the gas extraction company to mine their gas there. And the EPA is helpless. Why? Strangely enough, there are many laws on the books to protect the environment. There is the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act, and the Safe Drinking Water Act. These were all enacted in the 1970s and signed into law by Richard Nixon, a Republican. Come along into the early part of this century, or late last century, in George Bush administration, they wrote new guidelines for extraction that would apply to oil and gas extraction, and they gave the extracting companies waivers to not have to adhere to these laws. And that was much done by some conniving by Richard Cheney, and hence they're often referred to as the Halliburton waivers. And so all of these extracting companies can do all of this work, and they don't have to be responsible for the damages that are being caused locally in the area where they are extracting, damaging the environment and being threatening to people's lives and livelihoods. And this is the gas that they want to pass through Vermont, and Vermont has already signed a law that there should be no fracking in Vermont. So, should we accept gas in Vermont, which came into being at the risk of other places, just so because it's economically desirable to us? It's hypocritical. As you can tell, I'm negative on the subject of building that gas line, and there are a lot of other people that are, and they're familiar with the troubles that have been noted elsewhere where the fracking does take place, and they're also finding themselves being railroaded by the gas company. The gas company is known as Vermont Gas Systems, but the Vermont is just a fiction because it's a Canadian company, and they have a subsidiary named Vermont to give it the right cachet, and so they seem to have the blessings of a lot of organizations. Middlebury College is all in favor of this because using the gas will reduce their heating and bills enormously. So is Cawood Creamery, and so are many other firms up and down the corridor from Colchester to Rutland, all in favor. Peter Shumlin is in favor. There is an enormous move, however, on the grassroots level, of people that are opposing it. And I would like to bring your attention to this and get you to give some thinking to it, and maybe writing some letters to editors, writing to your legislators, writing to Peter Shumlin, writing to Middlebury College, and other places that are all in favor of this, explaining the real problems with fracking. And perhaps we can prevent this pipeline from becoming built. Madam Toastmaster.